The dust-caked stagecoach lurched to a stop in front of the general store, and Isabel Lawrence watched from the window as a woman in a worn traveling dress stepped down onto the wooden boardwalk of San Elizario, Texas, one hand pressed protectively against her very pregnant belly. Isaac Lambert had been checking the fence posts on his ranch when his foreman rode up with the news that his mail-order bride had finally arrived. 6 weeks late, but arrived nonetheless. He wiped the sweat from his brow with a dusty kerchief and nodded slowly, trying to ignore the flutter of nervousness in his chest. At 28 years old, he had built a successful cattle operation through hard work and careful planning, but he had precious little experience with women. The advertisement he had placed in the Boston newspaper 3 months ago had been a practical decision. A ranch needed a woman's touch, and he needed heirs to pass his land to when his time came. What he had not expected, however, was to find Anna Zimmerman standing on the boardwalk looking pale and exhausted, her condition obvious even beneath the folds of her traveling cloak. Isaac pulled his horse to a stop and dismounted slowly, his boots hitting the dusty street with a heavy thud. He approached her carefully, removing his hat as he came closer. "Miss Zimmerman?" he asked, his voice rougher than he intended. She turned to face him, and he was struck by the deep blue of her eyes, shadowed with worry and something that looked like fear. She was younger than he had expected, perhaps 22 or 23, with dark blonde hair pinned up beneath a simple bonnet. Despite the dust of travel and the obvious strain of her journey, she held herself with a certain dignity that he found himself admiring. "Mr. Lambert," she said quietly, her voice carrying the cultured accent of New England, "I imagine this is not what you were expecting." He looked at her rounded belly, then back up to her face. A dozen questions crowded his mind, but what came out was simple and honest. "That baby needs a father." The words seemed to shock her. Her eyes widened, and for a moment she simply stared at him. "You do not understand," she began, her voice trembling slightly. "I should have written to you. I should have told you before I came, but I was desperate, and I thought perhaps if I could just explain in person, you might understand." Isaac glanced around at the growing crowd of curious onlookers. San Elizario was a small town, situated along the Rio Grande in the westernmost part of Texas. It had grown from a Spanish settlement into a trading post and way station, and gossip spread faster than wildfire in the dry grasslands. "This is not the place for this conversation," he said firmly. "Let me get your trunk loaded onto my wagon, and we will talk at the ranch." She nodded gratefully, and he could see the exhaustion in every line of her body. He signaled to his foreman, Miguel, who had followed him into town, and together they loaded her single battered trunk onto the back of the wagon. Isaac helped Anna up onto the seat, noticing how she winced as she settled herself. The ride back to his ranch would take nearly an hour, and he could tell she was bone-weary from her journey. They rode in silence for the first few miles, the only sounds the creak of the wagon wheels and the steady clip of the horses' hooves. The landscape around them stretched out in endless waves of golden grass, broken here and there by clusters of mesquite and the occasional cottonwood tree marking the course of a dry creek bed. The sun beat down mercilessly, and Isaac found himself grateful for the wide brim of his hat. "I was married," Anna said finally, her voice barely audible over the rumble of the wagon. "His name was Thomas. We were married for only 8 months when he died." Isaac kept his eyes on the road ahead, giving her the space to tell her story in her own way. "He worked in a textile mill," she continued. "There was an accident. A fire broke out and he went back inside to help get the other workers out. The building collapsed." Her voice caught, and she paused for a moment before continuing. "By the time I knew I was carrying his child, I had already lost everything. His family blamed me for his death. They said he would never have been working at the mill if I had not wanted a nicer house, nicer things. They turned me out. Isaac felt a surge of anger on her behalf. That was not right of them. No, she agreed softly, but I had no recourse. I had no family of my own, no means of support. I tried to find work, but no one would hire a pregnant woman. I was staying in a boarding house, using the last of my savings when I saw your advertisement. I knew it was dishonest not to tell you about my situation, but I was so frightened. I thought perhaps when I arrived I could explain and you might take pity on me, or at least help me find some kind of work in town until after the baby was born. When is the baby due? Isaac asked. 3 months, she said. Perhaps a little less. They rode on in silence for a while longer. Isaac turned over the situation in his mind, examining it from every angle. He had sent money for her passage, expecting a bride. She had come, but she carried another man's child. By all rights, he could send her back, demand his money be returned, place another advertisement. But even as the thoughts crossed his mind, he knew he would not do it. There was something in the way she held herself, in the quiet courage it must have taken to make this journey alone, that struck a chord deep within him. I meant what I said, he told her as the ranch house came into view. That baby needs a father. If you are willing, we will be married as we agreed. The child will have my name and my protection, same as any child born to us later might have. Anna turned to look at him, her eyes searching his face. Why would you do this? You do not know me. This child is not yours. Isaac pulled the wagon to a stop in front of the house, a sturdy adobe structure with a wide porch that he had built with his own hands. I know what it is like to grow up without a father, he said quietly. My own died when I was just a boy. I know what it is like to see my mother struggle alone, to feel the weight of being unable to help her. I would not wish that on any child. He climbed down from the wagon and came around to help her down. And I know what it is like to be judged for circumstances beyond my control. When my mother remarried, her new husband was a hard man. He made it clear I was not wanted. I left home at 15 and made my own way. I built this ranch from nothing, and I did it because I wanted to create something better, something lasting. A family needs to be built on more than just blood. It needs to be built on choice, on commitment. He helped her down from the wagon, steadying her as her feet touched the ground. She was shorter than he had expected, the top of her head barely reaching his shoulder. I do not expect anything from you that you are not ready to give, he continued. We will marry for the sake of propriety and to give the baby a name. But we will take our time getting to know each other. The house is large enough that you can have your own room for as long as you need it. Tears welled up in Anna's eyes, and she blinked them back quickly. I do not know how to thank you, she whispered. No thanks needed, Isaac said. Come inside. I will show you around, and then I will ride back to town to speak with Reverend Matthews about performing the ceremony tomorrow. The house was simple but well built, with thick adobe walls that kept out the worst of the summer heat. The main room served as both kitchen and living area, with a large stone fireplace at one end and a sturdy wooden table near the windows. 2 doors led off to smaller rooms, bedrooms Isaac had built with the intention of filling them with children someday. Anna looked around with an expression of wonder and relief. It is lovely, she said, and he could hear that she meant it. The bedroom on the left will be yours, Isaac said. It has a good bed and a window that catches the morning light. I will bring in your trunk. He paused. Are you hungry? I am not much of a cook, but I can manage beans and cornbread. A small smile touched her lips, the first he had seen from her. I can cook, she said. If you will show me where things are kept, I would be happy to make supper. You have been traveling for weeks, Isaac protested. You should rest. I have been doing nothing but sitting for weeks, Anna replied. It would feel good to do something useful. She looked at him with those deep blue eyes. Please, let me do this. He nodded and showed her where he kept the supplies. The ranch was largely self-sufficient, with a good vegetable garden that his housekeeper, Mrs. Chen, tended when she came out from town twice a week to help with the heavier cleaning. There was a smokehouse with bacon and ham, a cold cellar with potatoes and onions, shelves lined with jars of preserved vegetables and fruits that he had traded for in town. Anna moved through the kitchen with practiced efficiency, and soon the smell of frying bacon and onions filled the house. Isaac brought in her trunk and set it in her room, then sat at the table and watched her work. There was something soothing about the domestic scene, something that made the house feel more like a home than it ever had in all the years he had lived here alone. When she set a plate in front of him, heaped with fried potatoes, bacon, and eggs from his henhouse, he realized he was hungrier than he had thought. They ate in companionable silence, and when the meal was finished, Anna stood and began clearing the dishes. Isaac helped her, and together they washed and dried the plates and set them back on the shelves. It felt natural, this simple rhythm of working together, and Isaac found himself thinking that perhaps this arrangement might work out better than he had dared to hope. I should ride into town, he said as they finished. The Reverend will need time to prepare, and I should let him know we will want the ceremony tomorrow. Anna nodded. I will be fine here. I think I might rest for a while if that is acceptable. Of course, Isaac said. This is your home now. You do not need my permission for anything. He rode back to San Elizario as the sun began its descent toward the western horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Reverend Matthews was a practical man who had seen enough of life on the frontier to be shocked by very little. He listened to Isaac's brief explanation without interruption, then nodded slowly. You are a good man, Isaac Lambert, he said. There are not many who would take on another man's child without question. The child is innocent, Isaac replied. And Miss Zimmerman has been dealt a hard hand through no fault of her own. I have the means to help, so I will. Tomorrow morning, then, the Reverend agreed. Shall I arrange for witnesses? If you would. I am not particular about who. Isaac stopped at the general store on his way out of town and bought a few things he thought Anna might need. Some fabric for new dresses, as her traveling clothes were worn thin. A package of needles and thread. Some peppermint candies, because he remembered his mother saying they helped with the nausea of pregnancy. He added a bag of oranges, a rare treat that the storekeeper had just received in a shipment from California, thinking the fruit might be good for her and the baby. When he returned to the ranch, the sun had fully set and the stars were beginning to emerge in the darkening sky. He found Anna sitting on the porch in one of the wooden chairs he had built, looking out over the grasslands. She had changed into a simple cotton dress, and her hair was down, falling in soft waves around her shoulders. I brought you a few things from town, Isaac said, setting the packages down on the porch. The ceremony is set for tomorrow morning if that suits you. So soon, Anna said, but she did not sound distressed, merely thoughtful. I thought it best to get it done quickly, Isaac explained. The sooner we are married, the sooner the gossip will die down. People will count months on their fingers regardless, but at least this way the baby will be legitimate in the eyes of the law. Anna nodded slowly. You have thought of everything. I try to be thorough, Isaac said. He settled into the chair beside her, stretching out his long legs. I want you to know that I will do right by you, Anna. I am not a man of many words, and I cannot promise romance or poetry. But I can promise that I will work hard to provide for you and the baby, and I will treat you with respect. That is more than many women have, Anna said softly. I will try to be a good wife to you, Isaac. I will keep your house and cook your meals and be a partner to you in building this life you have started here." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, listening to the night sounds of the prairie. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote called out and another answered. The air was cooling rapidly now that the sun had set, and Anna shivered slightly. Isaac stood and retrieved a blanket from inside, draping it over her shoulders. "Thank you," she murmured. "You should get some rest," Isaac said gently. "Tomorrow will be a long day." She nodded and rose, the blanket still wrapped around her shoulders. At the door to her room, she paused and turned back to him. "Isaac, I know this is not what you wanted when you placed that advertisement. I know I have not been honest with you, and I will understand if you change your mind before tomorrow. I will not hold it against you." "I will not change my mind," Isaac said firmly. "I am a man of my word, Anna. When I make a commitment, I see it through." She smiled then, a real smile that lit up her whole face and made her eyes sparkle even in the dim lamplight. "Good night, Isaac." "Good night, Anna." The wedding took place the next morning in the small chapel in San Elizario. The Reverend's wife and the town doctor served as witnesses, both of them discreet enough not to stare too obviously at Anna's condition. Anna wore the best of her traveling dresses, a simple blue cotton that brought out the color of her eyes. Isaac had put on his cleanest shirt and even trimmed his beard that morning, wanting to look respectable for the occasion. The ceremony was brief and to the point. Isaac spoke his vows in a clear, steady voice, and Anna repeated hers with quiet dignity. When the Reverend pronounced them man and wife, Isaac leaned down and brushed a chaste kiss across Anna's cheek, not wanting to presume more. Her hand was small and soft in his as they signed the marriage register, and he felt the weight of responsibility settle onto his shoulders alongside the hope that maybe, just maybe, this could become something real. They rode back to the ranch together, and Anna looked around at the land with new eyes. "Tell me about the ranch," she said. "How did you come to settle here?" Isaac was glad for the question, as talking about the ranch was something he could do easily. "I came to Texas when I was 17, he explained. "I had been working on ranches in New Mexico territory, learning the cattle business. I heard that land was available here in the El Paso area, and I decided to try my hand at it. I started with just 50 head of cattle and a piece of land that nobody else wanted because the water situation was uncertain. But I walked every inch of this property before I bought it, and I found 3 good springs that run year-round. With water, you can make almost anything work in this country." "How large is the ranch now?" Anna asked. 5,000 acres, Isaac said, not without pride. "I have nearly 800 head of cattle, and I employ 3 full-time hands plus Miguel, my foreman. During roundup and branding, I hire on additional men. It is not the biggest operation in the territory, but it is profitable and growing." "You must work very hard," Anna observed. "I do," Isaac admitted. "But it is good work, honest work. There is something satisfying about building something with your own hands, about watching it grow and thrive." When they reached the ranch, Miguel was waiting with the other hands, all of them cleaned up and looking somewhat formal. Isaac helped Anna down from the wagon, and Miguel stepped forward with a broad smile. "Congratulations, boss," he said warmly. "We wanted to welcome the new Mrs. Lambert properly." He gestured to the long table that had been set up outside under the shade of the cottonwood trees. It was laden with food, the contributions of the ranch hands and their families. There were enchiladas and tamales, fresh tortillas, beans, rice, and a large pot of pozole. Someone had even made a cake, though it leaned somewhat to one side. Anna looked overwhelmed by the gesture, her eyes glistening with tears. "This is so kind," she managed. Thank you all so much." The celebration was simple but heartfelt. The ranch hands were respectful, addressing Anna as Mrs. Lambert and offering their congratulations. Their wives, who had come out from their small houses on the ranch property, were warm and welcoming, chattering in a mix of Spanish and English about babies and housekeeping and the challenges of ranch life. Anna listened attentively, asking questions and accepting their advice with grace. Isaac watched her interact with his people and felt something warm unfold in his chest. She fit here, he realized. Despite everything, despite the strangeness of their situation, she fit into this life he had built. When she laughed at something one of the women said, the sound carried across the yard, and several of the men exchanged knowing looks with Isaac, as if to say he had done well for himself. As the sun began to set, and the guests departed, Anna and Isaac found themselves alone again. They worked together to clean up the remnants of the celebration, carrying dishes inside and packing away the leftover food. The ease of working beside each other had already begun to feel familiar, and Isaac found himself relaxing into it. "Your people are wonderful," Anna said as they finished. "They made me feel so welcome." "They are good folks," Isaac agreed. "Most of them have been with me for years. Miguel was my first hire back when I could barely afford to pay him. He stayed anyway, said he believed in what I was trying to build. His loyalty means everything to me." Anna smiled. "I can see that. The way they look at you, it is clear they respect you." "I try to treat them fairly," Isaac said. "I pay good wages and I do not ask them to do anything I would not do myself. On a ranch this size, you need people you can trust, people who will work hard even when you are not watching. The only way to get that is to give them reason to care about the place as much as you do." They settled into a routine over the following weeks. Isaac rose before dawn each day to begin his work on the ranch, and Anna kept the house, cooked the meals, and slowly began to make the place her own. She planted herbs in a small garden near the kitchen door and arranged wildflowers in jars on the table. She mended Isaac's worn shirts and sewed new curtains for the windows from the fabric he had bought her in town. Isaac found himself hurrying through his evening chores so he could get back to the house, where Anna would have supper waiting. They would eat together and talk about their days, about small things and large ones. He told her about the challenges of managing the ranch, about his plans to expand the herd and build a new barn. She told him about her childhood in Boston, about her mother who had died when she was young and her father who had worked as a clerk until his death a few years ago. She had met Thomas at church, she said, and they had married quickly, both of them young and in love and certain they could build a happy life together. "I think he would have been a wonderful father," Anna said one evening, her hand resting on her swollen belly. "He was so kind, so gentle. He would have loved this baby so much." Isaac felt a pang of something that might have been jealousy, but he pushed it down. "The baby is lucky to have had a father like that, even if only for a little while," he said carefully. "And I will do my best to honor his memory by raising this child right." Anna reached across the table and placed her hand over his. It was the first time she had initiated physical contact, and Isaac felt his heart beat faster. "You are a good man, Isaac Lambert," she said softly. "Better than I deserve." "You deserve every good thing," Isaac replied, turning his hand over to squeeze hers gently. "You have had more than your share of sorrow. It is time for something better." As the weeks passed, Isaac began to notice changes in the way Anna looked at him. There was a softness in her eyes when he came in from a long day of work, a smile that seemed just for him. She would touch his arm when she passed him, brush her hand across his shoulders when she set his plate in front of him. Small gestures, but they made his pulse quicken, and his thoughts turned to possibilities he had not dared to consider. One evening, nearly 2 months after their wedding, Isaac was working late in the barn when he heard Anna call out. He dropped the harness he had been mending and ran toward the house, his heart pounding with fear. He found her in the kitchen, leaning against the table, her face pale. "What is wrong?" he demanded, taking her arm to steady her. "The baby," she gasped. "Something is not right. I have been having pains all afternoon, but I thought they were just the normal discomforts. But they are getting stronger, and I am frightened. Isaac." He helped her to the bedroom and settled her on the bed, then ran to saddle the fastest horse. He rode hard to Miguel's house and pounded on the door. Miguel appeared, pulling on his shirt. "I need you to ride for the doctor," Isaac said without preamble. "Anna is in pain. The baby might be coming early." Miguel was on his horse and riding for town within minutes. Isaac returned to the house and found Anna in the same position he had left her, her eyes squeezed shut against the pain. He sat beside her on the bed and took her hand, feeling utterly helpless. "I am here," he said softly. "The doctor is coming. You are going to be fine." "It is too early," Anna whispered, tears streaming down her face. "The baby is not due for another month. Isaac, I am so frightened." He had no words of comfort that would not sound hollow, so instead he simply held her hand and stroked her hair, murmuring soft reassurances that he hoped were true. The pain seemed to ease after a while, and Anna's breathing steadied. She clung to his hand as if it were a lifeline. The doctor arrived just after midnight, a brisk, efficient man named Dr. Harrison who had seen more than his share of difficult births. He examined Anna thoroughly while Isaac paced in the main room, his mind conjuring every terrible possibility. Dr. Harrison emerged after what felt like hours. "The baby is not coming yet," he said. "What she experienced was false labor. It happens sometimes, especially with first babies. But she needs to rest and avoid any strenuous activity. The baby is fine for now, but it is positioned a bit awkwardly. If the real labor starts early, it could be complicated." "What can I do?" Isaac asked. "Keep her calm and comfortable," the doctor said. "Make sure she stays off her feet as much as possible, and send for me immediately if the pains start again." After the doctor left, Isaac went to Anna's room and found her awake, staring at the ceiling. "The doctor says you and the baby are fine," he told her, "but you need to rest." "I heard," Anna said quietly. "Isaac, I am sorry. I did not mean to frighten you." He sat on the edge of the bed and took her hand again. "You have nothing to be sorry for. I am just glad you are both all right." He paused, then added, "I realized something tonight, Anna. When I thought something might be wrong, when I thought I might lose you, I was terrified. Not because it would be inconvenient or because I would be alone again. I was terrified because I care about you. Somewhere along the way, this stopped being just an arrangement for me. You have become important to me, you and the baby both." Anna's eyes filled with tears again, but these looked different from the tears of pain he had seen earlier. "I care about you too," she whispered. "I have been trying not to, trying to keep my distance because I thought it would be easier that way. But I cannot help it, Isaac. You have been so good to me, so patient and kind. I think I am falling in love with you." The words hung in the air between them, precious and fragile. Isaac lifted her hand to his lips and kissed it gently. "I think I am falling in love with you too," he said. "I want this to be a real marriage, Anna, not just on paper, but in every way. I want to be your husband and a father to this baby and to any other children we might have. I want to build a life with you, a real life." "Yes," Anna breathed. "Yes, I want that too." He leaned down and kissed her then, a real kiss this time, tender and full of promise. When he pulled back, they were both smiling and the room felt charged with possibility. "You should rest now," Isaac said reluctantly. The doctor said you need to take it easy. Will you stay with me? Anna asked. Just until I fall asleep. He settled himself in the chair beside her bed and held her hand while her breathing slowly evened out into sleep. Looking down at her peaceful face, Isaac felt a surge of protectiveness so fierce it almost frightened him. He would move mountains to keep her safe, to make sure she and the baby had everything they needed. This woman who had come to him carrying another man's child, who had been brave enough to cross half a continent alone and desperate enough to trust a stranger with her future. She had become the center of his world. The next few weeks were both wonderful and nerve-wracking. Anna followed the doctor's orders and rested as much as possible, though Isaac could tell it chafed at her to be idle. She spent her days sewing tiny clothes for the baby and reading from the small collection of books Isaac had accumulated over the years. He brought her wildflowers and sat with her in the evenings, reading aloud or just talking about their hopes and dreams. Their relationship deepened during this time. The barriers between them had come down, and they spoke openly about everything. Anna told him about her fears for the birth, about the guilt she sometimes felt that she was giving her heart to Isaac when it had belonged to Thomas first. Isaac reassured her that the heart was not a finite resource, that loving him did not diminish what she had felt for her first husband. He told her about his own fears, about the father who had died when he was too young to remember him clearly, about the stepfather who had made him feel unwanted and worthless. He told her about the years of working himself to exhaustion, trying to prove that he was worth something, that he could build something lasting and good. Anna listened and understood, and she told him that he had already proven himself 1,000 times over, that the ranch and the life he had built spoke to his worth more clearly than any words could. One morning, about 3 weeks after the scare with the false labor, Anna woke Isaac before dawn. "It is time," she said calmly, though he could see the fear in her eyes. "The baby is coming." This time there was no mistaking it. The pains were regular and strong, and Anna was remarkably composed between them. Isaac sent one of the hands for the doctor and for Miguel's wife, Rosa, who had experience as a midwife. Then he stayed with Anna, supporting her as she paced the room during the contractions and wiping her face with a cool cloth when they passed. Dr. Harrison arrived as the sun was coming up, with Rosa right behind him. They shooed Isaac out of the room, and he spent the next several hours wearing a path in the floorboards of the main room. He could hear Anna crying out occasionally, and each sound made him flinch. Miguel came and tried to distract him with talk of the ranch work, but Isaac could barely focus on the words. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he heard a new sound, a thin, reedy cry that made his heart leap into his throat. Rosa emerged from the bedroom, beaming. "You have a son," she announced, "a healthy baby boy, and Anna is doing well." Isaac nearly stumbled in his haste to get to the bedroom. Anna lay propped up against the pillows, looking exhausted but radiant. In her arms was a tiny bundle wrapped in a soft blanket. As Isaac approached, she pulled the blanket back to reveal a small, red face topped with a shock of dark hair. "Come meet your son," Anna said softly, and the way she said it, the certainty in her voice that this baby was Isaac's in every way that mattered, made his throat tight with emotion. He sat carefully on the edge of the bed and looked down at the infant in wonder. The baby's eyes were closed, his little fists waving aimlessly. Isaac reached out one calloused finger and gently touched the baby's tiny hand. Immediately, those miniature fingers closed around his, gripping with surprising strength. "He knows you," Anna murmured, smiling. "He is perfect," Isaac said, his voice rough with emotion. "You are amazing, Anna. You did so well." "What should we name him?" Anna asked. "I was thinking, if you are agreeable, we might name him Thomas Isaac, after his father and after you, both of the men who have loved him. Isaac felt tears prick at his eyes. That is a perfect name, he managed. Thomas Isaac Lambert. The baby, as if responding to his name, opened his eyes briefly. They were dark blue, the color that all babies had at first, but Isaac thought he could see his own mother's eyes in them somehow. He carefully put his arm around Anna, drawing her close, and together they looked down at the child who had brought them together. Dr. Harrison examined them both thoroughly before he left, pronouncing mother and baby healthy and advising plenty of rest. Rosa stayed for the day, helping Anna get settled and showing her how to nurse the baby. By evening, they were alone again, the three of them, a ready-made family. Isaac had moved his things into Anna's room, and that night he held her carefully as she slept, the baby in a cradle beside the bed. Every time Thomas stirred, Isaac was awake immediately, watching to make sure everything was all right. Anna teased him gently about it when she woke to feed the baby in the middle of the night, finding Isaac sitting up and watching over them both. "You need sleep too," she chided gently. "I will sleep when I am sure you are both safe," Isaac replied, only half joking. The first few weeks with a newborn were exhausting but joyful. Thomas was a good baby, crying only when he was hungry or needed changing. Anna recovered quickly from the birth, and soon the house had settled into a new rhythm. Isaac found himself constantly amazed by her strength and grace. She managed the baby and the household with apparent ease, always having a smile for Isaac when he came in from his work. One evening, when Thomas was about 6 weeks old, Isaac came in to find the baby asleep in his cradle and Anna standing at the stove, humming softly as she prepared supper. She had her hair down, and the setting sun streaming through the window turned it to gold. She looked up as he entered and smiled, and Isaac felt his heart turn over in his chest. He crossed the room and wrapped his arms around her from behind, pulling her back against his chest. "I love you," he said into her hair. "I know I do not say it enough, but I do. I love you so much it frightens me sometimes." Anna turned in his arms and looked up at him, her eyes shining. "I love you too," she said. "I never thought I could feel this way again after losing Thomas. I thought that part of my life was over. But you have shown me that the heart can heal, that it can expand to hold new love without forgetting the old. You have given me and my son a home, a family, a future. I love you, Isaac Lambert, and I will spend the rest of my life showing you how grateful I am." He kissed her then, deeply and thoroughly, pouring all his feelings into it. When they finally broke apart, both of them were breathing hard, and Isaac could see the desire in Anna's eyes that matched his own. Dr. Harrison had said she needed 6 weeks to fully heal from the birth, and those 6 weeks were up. That night, after they had put Thomas down to sleep and finished the evening chores, they came together as husband and wife in truth, and the last barrier between them fell away. The months that followed were the happiest of Isaac's life. He threw himself into his work with renewed energy, driven by the desire to provide for his growing family. The ranch continued to prosper, and he was able to hire another hand and purchase additional breeding stock. Anna transformed the house into a true home, warm and welcoming, and Thomas grew and thrived under their combined care. When Thomas was 6 months old, Isaac came in one evening to find Anna looking troubled. "What is wrong?" he asked immediately. She twisted her hands together nervously. "I have been feeling unwell in the mornings," she said carefully, "and I have missed my monthly courses. Isaac, I think I might be expecting again." Isaac felt a smile spread across his face. "That is wonderful news," he exclaimed, then paused as he registered her expression. "Is it not?" "Are you not happy?" "I am happy," Anna said quickly. "Of course I am. I just worry that it is too soon, that Thomas is still so young and needs so much attention, and I worry about you, about whether you want this." Isaac pulled her into his arms. "I want this more than anything," he said firmly. "I want a house full of children with you, Anna, as many as we are blessed with, and Thomas will be fine. By the time the new baby arrives, he will be old enough to be a big brother. It will be good for him." Anna relaxed against him, and he felt her smile against his chest. "A house full of children," she repeated. "That sounds wonderful." This pregnancy was different from the first. This time, Anna was not alone and frightened. She had Isaac beside her every step of the way, and she had the experience of having done it once before. She bloomed with health, and Isaac thought she had never been more beautiful. He could not keep his hands off her, constantly touching her growing belly, feeling the baby kick and move. Thomas learned to walk during this time, taking his first wobbly steps from Anna to Isaac across the kitchen floor. He was a cheerful, affectionate child, and Isaac could not have loved him more if he had been his own blood. The hands on the ranch doted on him, and he was often to be found toddling around the yard, supervised by one of the men who would patiently follow him and make sure he did not get into too much trouble. Anna went into labor on a warm spring evening when Thomas was 14 months old. This birth was easier than the first, and by midnight Anna held a tiny daughter in her arms. Isaac was present for this birth, holding Anna's hand and supporting her through the contractions. When the baby emerged, squalling lustily, and Dr. Harrison announced it was a girl, Isaac felt tears stream down his face. "A daughter," he said in wonder. "We have a daughter." "What should we name her?" Anna asked, looking down at the red, angry little face with besotted eyes. They had discussed names during the pregnancy, and Isaac had a suggestion ready. "What about Rose?" he said. "After my mother, she would have loved to meet you and the children." "Rose Lambert," Anna said, trying it out. "It is perfect. Hello, little Rose, welcome to the world." Thomas was fascinated by his baby sister, wanting to touch her constantly and bring her his toys. Isaac and Anna had to watch him carefully to make sure his affection did not become too enthusiastic, but it was clear that he adored her. The house felt full now, full of life and love and noise. The sound of children's laughter rang through the rooms, and Isaac could not imagine how he had ever lived here alone. The years passed in a rhythm of seasons and small milestones. Rose learned to walk and talk, a bright, curious child who followed her brother everywhere. Thomas grew into a sturdy boy who loved the ranch and the animals, who could often be found helping Miguel or one of the other hands with their work. Anna and Isaac's love deepened with time, weathering the small storms of daily life and growing stronger for it. When Rose was 2 years old, Anna became pregnant again. This time, the pregnancy resulted in twin boys, much to everyone's surprise and delight. Isaac built an addition onto the house to accommodate the growing family, adding 2 more bedrooms and expanding the kitchen. The ranch continued to prosper, and Isaac was able to build the new barn he had been planning and purchase more land. The twins, whom they named Samuel and Joseph, were a handful from the moment they were born. They were into everything, and keeping up with them required all of Anna's energy and the help of Rosa, who came to work for them part-time now that her own children were grown. Thomas, now a responsible 6-year-old, took his role as big brother seriously, helping to watch over his younger siblings and protecting them fiercely. One evening, when the twins were about a year old, Isaac and Anna were sitting on the porch watching the children play in the yard. Thomas was showing Rose how to throw a ball, while the twins toddled around on unsteady legs, getting into everything they could reach. "Can you believe this is our life?" Anna said softly, leaning against Isaac's shoulder. 5 years ago I was alone and terrified, with no idea what would become of me. And now look at us. 4 beautiful children, a thriving ranch, a home full of love. It seems like a dream sometimes. Isaac put his arm around her and pulled her close. "It is not a dream," he said. "It is real, and we built it together. You and me." "You saved me, you know," Anna said, turning to look up at him. "When I stepped off that stagecoach, I was at the end of my rope. I had given up hope that anything would ever be all right again. And then you said that Thomas needed a father, and you took us both in without hesitation. You gave us a life, Isaac. You gave us everything." "You gave me just as much," Isaac replied. "Before you came, I had a ranch and money in the bank, but I did not have a home. I did not have a reason to get up in the morning beyond the work that needed doing. You gave me a family, Anna. You gave me purpose and joy and love. We saved each other." They sat together as the sun set, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and red and purple. The children's laughter filled the air, and somewhere in the distance, Isaac could hear the cattle lowing as the hands brought them in for the night. This was his life now, full and rich and more than he had ever dared to dream of. Anna became pregnant one more time, 3 years after the twins were born. This pregnancy was harder on her than the others had been, and Dr. Harrison warned that at 32, with 5 pregnancies in 8 years, her body needed rest. This would be the last baby, he said firmly, and both Isaac and Anna agreed. Their family felt complete, and they did not want to risk Anna's health. This final baby was a girl, born on a snowy December morning. They named her Grace, and she was the image of Anna with blonde hair and blue eyes. Thomas was now 9 years old, a serious, responsible boy who was already a real help on the ranch. Rose was 7, bright and full of energy, already showing an interest in her mother's herbs and cooking. The twins were 6, still wild but starting to settle down under Thomas's patient guidance. Grace's birth seemed to complete the family in a way that felt right to both Isaac and Anna. They had their hands full with 5 children, but the house rang with laughter and love. Isaac had expanded the ranch to 10,000 acres, making it one of the most successful operations in the territory. He had built a legacy not just in land and cattle, but in the family he and Anna had created together. One evening, when Grace was about 6 months old, Isaac found a letter waiting for him when he came in from the range. It was from Boston, and it was addressed to Anna in an unfamiliar hand. He brought it to her with a questioning look. Anna opened it and read it slowly, her expression changing as she went through the contents. When she finished, she looked up at Isaac with tears in her eyes. "It is from Thomas's brother," she said quietly. "He says that their mother is dying, and she wants to see me before she goes. She wants to apologize for how the family treated me after Thomas died. Apparently, she has carried the guilt of it all these years." "What do you want to do?" Isaac asked carefully. Anna was silent for a long moment, staring down at the letter. "I want to go," she said finally. "I want to take Thomas to meet his grandmother, to know that part of his heritage. And I want to give her the peace of knowing that we are all right, that her grandchild is happy and thriving. But I cannot go alone, not with the baby so young." "Then we will all go," Isaac said decisively. "We will make a trip of it. The children should see Boston, should know where their mother came from, and I want to be there with you when you face that family again. You should not have to do that alone." So it was that 2 months later, the Lambert family found themselves on a train heading east. It was Thomas's first time away from the ranch, and he was both excited and nervous about the journey. Rose was fascinated by everything, asking endless questions about where they were going and what they would see. The twins were a challenge to keep corralled on the train, but with all of them working together, they managed. Boston was a revelation. The noise, the crowds, the buildings packed so closely together, All of it was completely foreign to children who had grown up on the wide, open spaces of a Texas ranch. Isaac felt out of place in his range clothes and cowboy hat, but he held his head high and kept his arm around Anna as they made their way to the address the letter had provided. Thomas's grandmother was bedridden, frail and elderly. But when Anna entered the room with young Thomas by her side, the old woman's eyes filled with tears. "You look so much like him," she whispered, reaching out a trembling hand to the boy. "Like my Thomas." Thomas, coached by his mother, took the old woman's hand gently. "Hello, grandmother," he said politely. "It is nice to meet you." They stayed for an hour, long enough for Anna to tell the family about the life she had built in Texas, about Isaac and the ranch and the children. She showed them the photographs Isaac had insisted on having taken before they left, images of the whole family lined up in front of the ranch house. Thomas's brother, who looked strikingly like the portrait of Thomas that the grandmother kept on her bedside table, listened with an expression that moved from shame to acceptance. "I am sorry," he said finally, "for how we treated you. We were wrong. We were grieving and we lashed out at the wrong person. Can you forgive us?" Anna looked at Isaac, who gave her an encouraging nod. "I can forgive you," she said. "I have a good life now, a wonderful husband and beautiful children. I cannot regret where that difficult time led me. But I am glad to have this chance to say goodbye properly, to let you know that Thomas's son is happy and loved." The old woman died 2 days later, peacefully in her sleep. They stayed for the funeral, and Isaac stood beside Anna as she said goodbye to the last connection to her first life. Young Thomas was solemn and well-behaved throughout, seeming to understand the importance of the occasion. On the train ride home, Anna leaned against Isaac's shoulder while the children slept around them. "Thank you," she whispered, "for taking us, for standing beside me, for everything." "Always," Isaac replied, kissing the top of her head. "That is what family does." The years continued to pass full and rich. The children grew and thrived. Thomas, true to his gentle nature and the legacy of the man whose name he carried, became a skilled horseman and a thoughtful rancher. Isaac began teaching him the business side of the ranch when he was 12, and by the time he was 16, he was Isaac's right hand, capable and trustworthy. Rose developed her mother's gift for healing and herbs, and when she was 14, she began riding out with Dr. Harrison on his rounds, learning everything she could. The old doctor, who had no children of his own, was delighted to have such an eager student. She talked about becoming a real doctor someday, and Isaac promised her that if that was what she truly wanted, he would find a way to make it happen. The twins grew into strapping young men who loved the physical work of the ranch. They were in charge of the horse breeding program by the time they were 18, and they had developed a reputation throughout the territory for producing quality stock. They were wild still, fond of practical jokes and high spirits, but they were good boys with kind hearts. Grace, the baby, grew up adored by everyone around her. She had Anna's sweet nature and Isaac's determination, and she flitted through the house like a ray of sunshine. She loved helping her mother in the kitchen and working in the garden, but she could also rope a calf and ride as well as any of her brothers. When Thomas turned 21, he came to Isaac with news. He had been courting a girl from town, Maria, the daughter of the general store owner. She was a lovely girl, smart and hardworking, and Isaac and Anna both approved. Thomas asked for Isaac's blessing to marry her, and Isaac gave it gladly, with the condition that he build his bride a house on the ranch property. There was plenty of land, Isaac said, and he wanted his children and grandchildren close. The wedding was a grand affair, with the whole town turning out to celebrate. Isaac stood with Thomas during the ceremony, his heart full as he watched the boy he had claimed as his own become a man. When it came time for the father-son dance at the reception, Thomas pulled Isaac onto the floor. "I want you to know," Thomas said quietly as they danced, "that I am grateful for everything you have done for me and my mother. You did not have to take us in. You did not have to give me your name and raise me as your son. But you did, and you have shown me what it means to be a good man, a good husband, a good father. I hope I can live up to the example you have set." Isaac found himself blinking back tears for the second time that day. "You already do," he said gruffly. "I could not be more proud of you if you were my blood, Thomas. You are my son in every way that matters, and you have grown into a fine man. Your father, the man you were named for, would be proud too." 2 years later, Thomas and Maria welcomed their first child, a daughter they named Anna, after her grandmother. Isaac held his granddaughter and marveled at the passage of time, at the family that had grown from one desperate woman stepping off a stagecoach and one lonely cowboy willing to take a chance on love. Rose left for medical school in Philadelphia when she was 19, one of only a handful of women accepted into the program. It was hard to see her go, but Isaac and Anna were fiercely proud of her determination to follow her dreams. She wrote long letters home, describing her studies and the challenges of being a woman in a male-dominated field. She came home every summer, and she never lost her connection to the ranch and the family that had nurtured her. The twins married sisters, a pair of girls from a neighboring ranch, in a double ceremony that was the talk of the territory for months. They built houses near Thomas's, and soon the ranch was alive with the sound of grandchildren. Isaac found himself in the strange position of being a grandfather at 50, still hale and hearty, but watching the next generation begin to take over the work of the ranch. Grace, the baby, surprised everyone by falling in love with Miguel's grandson, a quiet young man who worked as a blacksmith in town. The family celebrated the marriage with joy, and Grace's husband built his forge on the ranch property, expanding the self-sufficiency of the operation. Through it all, Isaac and Anna remained the center of the family, the foundation on which everything else was built. Their love had only deepened with time, weathered by challenges and strengthened by shared joys and sorrows. They had buried parents and friends, celebrated births and marriages, worked side by side through droughts and good years, through market crashes and boom times. On their 25th wedding anniversary, their children threw them a grand celebration. The whole territory seemed to turn out, and the ranch was filled with music and laughter and dancing. Isaac stood with Anna, watching their children and grandchildren celebrate, and felt a profound sense of peace. "You ever regret it?" Anna asked softly, taking his hand. "Agreeing to marry me that day? Taking on another man's child?" Isaac turned to her, this woman who had stepped off a stagecoach 6 months pregnant and terrified, who had become the love of his life and the mother of his children. "Not for a single moment," he said firmly. "You and Thomas arriving was the best thing that ever happened to me. Everything good in my life stems from that moment when I looked at you and decided that baby needed a father. It brought me you and our family and more happiness than I knew existed in the world." Anna smiled, the same smile that had first captured his heart all those years ago. "I love you, Isaac Lambert," she said. "Thank you for being brave enough to love me back." They danced together as the sun set over the ranch, surrounded by the family they had built together. Children and grandchildren swirled around them, their laughter echoing across the land. The ranch stretched out in all directions, a legacy built on hard work and faith and love. As the years continued to pass, Isaac and Anna grew old together, their hair turning silver and their steps slowing, but their love never diminishing. They became the patriarch and matriarch of a sprawling family, dispensing wisdom and love in equal measure. The ranch continued to prosper under the management of Thomas and his brothers, incorporating new techniques and technologies while maintaining the values Isaac had instilled from the beginning. Rose returned from medical school as Dr. Rose Lambert, the first female physician in the territory. She set up her practice in San Elizario, serving the community with the same dedication and compassion her mother had always shown. She never married, declaring that her work was her passion, but she was beloved by all who knew her. On Isaac's 65th birthday, the family gathered for a celebration. All 5 of his children were there, along with their spouses and the 15 grandchildren that had been born over the years. They were expecting 3 more within the next few months, a fact that made Anna laugh and shake her head in wonder. Thomas stood to give a toast, and the room fell silent. "To my father," he said, looking at Isaac with eyes full of love and respect. "You have taught us all what it means to be a family, to build something that lasts. You took a chance on a pregnant woman and her unborn child, and from that one act of kindness and courage, all of this grew. We are all here because you said that a baby needed a father, and you were brave enough to be that father. Thank you for being the best father any of us could have asked for." The room erupted in cheers and applause, and Isaac felt Anna's hand squeeze his. He looked around at the faces of his children and grandchildren, at the legacy of love they represented, and felt a profound gratitude for the journey that had brought him here. Years later, when Isaac was 73 and Anna 71, they sat together on the porch of the ranch house as they had done countless times before. The house had been renovated and expanded over the years, but the porch remained, the place where they had first started falling in love. Thomas and his wife lived in the main house now, caring for Isaac and Anna as they aged, just as they had once cared for Thomas. Isaac's health was failing, his body worn out from a lifetime of hard work. But his mind was still sharp, and his love for Anna had never wavered. They held hands and watched the sunset, comfortable in the silence that only couples who have spent a lifetime together can achieve. "It has been a good life," Isaac said quietly. "The best life," Anna agreed, leaning her head on his shoulder. "I would not change a single moment of it." "Not even the fear and uncertainty at the beginning?" Isaac asked with a gentle smile. "Especially not that," Anna said firmly, "because those moments of fear led me to you and to all of this. Every hardship, every challenge, it was all worth it to have this life with you." Isaac kissed her forehead tenderly. "I love you, Anna Lambert. From the moment you stepped off that stagecoach until my last breath, you have been the center of my world." "And I love you, Isaac Lambert," Anna replied. "My hero, my partner, my love. Thank you for giving me and my son a home, for building this beautiful family with me, for showing me that the heart can always find room for more love." They sat together as the stars began to emerge in the darkening sky. 2 people who had taken a chance on each other and built something lasting and true. Around them, the ranch was alive with the sounds of family, with grandchildren playing and their parents calling them in for supper, with the lowing of cattle and the stamp of horses, with the timeless rhythms of the life they had created together. Isaac passed away peacefully in his sleep 6 months later, with Anna holding his hand. She followed him less than a year after that, her heart giving out as she sat in her favorite chair on the porch, looking out over the land they had loved together. Their children buried them side by side on a hill overlooking the ranch, with a simple marker that read Isaac and Anna Lambert, beloved parents and grandparents, together forever. The ranch continued to thrive under the stewardship of their children and grandchildren, a testament to the legacy of love and hard work that Isaac and Anna had established. Thomas lived to see his own grandchildren take over the management of the operation, and he often told them the story of how it all began, with a mail-order bride arriving 6 months pregnant, and a cowboy brave enough to say that baby needed a father. The story became legend in the family, passed down through generations as an example of what courage and kindness could build. Great-grandchildren who never met Isaac or Anna grew up knowing their story, understanding that family was not just about blood but about choice and commitment and love. The ranch itself became a symbol of enduring love, and long after both Isaac and Anna were gone, couples would come to stand by their graves and make promises to each other, inspired by the legacy of two people who had taken a chance on love and built something beautiful. In the end, that was what mattered most. Not the size of the ranch or the number of cattle or the success that Isaac had achieved through his hard work. What mattered was the love that had started with one simple statement, that baby needs a father, and had grown to encompass children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, a sprawling family tree rooted in compassion and nurtured by devotion. Isaac and Anna's love story became a part of the land itself, woven into the fabric of the ranch they had built together, ensuring that their legacy would endure for generations to come. A testament to the transforming power of love in the wild Texas landscape they had called home.